Gandalf, welcome to the podcast. I almost thought you weren't going to make it.
A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
I'm glad you made it precisely when you meant to. So let's talk about Lord of the Rings. It's one of the most beloved franchises of all time, but even the best stories have some plot holes. What's your take on some of the famous plot holes in the series?
Ah, yes, the plot holes. Well, one that always bothered me was how the eagles didn't just fly Frodo and the ring to Mordor from the beginning. It would have saved a lot of trouble, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a classic one. But what's your explanation for why they couldn't just use the eagles?
But seriously, the eagles are not taxis, Joe. They are intelligent beings with their own motivations and goals. Plus, if they had just flown in with the eagles, they would have been spotted by Sauron and his armies, and the mission would have failed before it even began.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now let's talk about the Rings of Power series. It was a highly anticipated show, but it was widely criticized by the fan base. What do you think went wrong with it?
Oh, don't even get me started on that disaster. You see, Joe, the showrunners had a fundamental misunderstanding of what made the original story so great. They focused too much on flashy visuals and action sequences, and not enough on the heart and soul of the characters.
Yeah, that seems to be a common complaint among fans. So, what would you have done differently if you were in charge of the show?
I would have made sure that the characters were properly developed and given the depth they deserve. I would have also paid more attention to the details and lore of Middle-earth, instead of just trying to create something flashy and marketable.
Hey, did you know I did a DNA test, and the results revealed that I was 43% dwarf?
I must say, Joe, I find that hard to believe. Dwarves are a proud and hardy race, known for their love of mining, crafting, and battling goblins. Do you share any of those traits?
Well, I do love a good workout, and I've been known to craft a joint or two in my day. Speaking of which, I happen to be smoking some dank pipeweed from the Shire now. Do you want me to pass the joint?
You shall not pass the joint, but if you ever do feel the call of the mountains, I'm sure the dwarves would be happy to welcome you into their midst.
I'll tell you who I do want to meet. This little dude, Gollum, he's a fucking genius, man. Eats nothing but raw meat and fish. Dude's got his paleo diet down to an art, man.
I'm not sure I would call Gollum a genius, Joe. He may have survived for centuries on his diet of raw fish and meat, but he is also consumed by the corrupting influence of the One Ring. He is a tragic figure, driven mad by his obsession with the ring and his desire to possess it.
Yeah, you're right. Gollum may have his diet down, but he's not exactly a role model. But you gotta admit, that guy is always swimming, rock climbing, bear crawling everywhere. Dude's athletic as fuck. He should not look as scrawny as he does. He should be one scary-looking motherfucker, all muscle. No offense to Tolkien, but he doesn't know shit about fitness. I've started eating live fish and bear crawling everywhere, and I gotta tell you, I feel incredible. Best shape I've ever been in. I'm telling you, man, Gollum's like a hobbit chimpanzee.
Joe, I must say, your enthusiasm for fitness is commendable, but I must caution you against following Gollum's example. While he may be agile and nimble, he's ultimately a pawn of Sauron, and his actions bring great danger to Frodo and the quest to destroy the ring. It is not a healthy or sustainable way to live. As for Tolkien's knowledge of fitness, I'm afraid I cannot speak to that since I've never met the guy.
Yeah, I see your point. Maybe I'll stick to my own workout routine and leave the bear crawling to Gollum.
Probably for the best, Joe.
Well, Gandalf, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about Lord of the Rings.
The pleasure was mine, Joe. And don't forget, even the smallest person can change the course of the future.